The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guest, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or the Webster Rockhill Ministries, its management, or other host or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented on KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to In Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston. We are talking to Amrit Gill, who is, he and his wife, they have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in revitalization of some architecturally significant buildings and neighborhoods and communities throughout the country, but especially here in St. Louis. They are Restoration St. Louis, and their organization initiates some real estate development programs. You all know the Grove. The Grove was a major function of Amrit and Amy's down at Restoration St. Louis. The Hotel Blackhawk, although we haven't gone up there to Iowa, the current Iowa, are the number 1 and 2 hotels in Davenport. You might know Hotel St. Louis. You might know the Chemical Building. Those are some recent things. The Hotel St. Louis is up and thriving and running. The Chemical Building next door, just recently purchased by them. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But he is here, and Amy's going to be joining us shortly to talk about a landmark that many of you probably have passed by and wondered, what in the world is that in the middle of Clayton? It is the Seven Gables Inn.
That's right. Thank you for having me.
And welcome back.
And also, anytime you want to come up to Davenport, please let me know. It's a beautiful community. You'd really enjoy it.
Now tell folks geographically where Davenport is located.
It's the Quad Cities. It's about 3.5 hours from here, just to the west of Peoria.
Okay. All right. So you go up, 61?
Well, we go up 55 actually,
okay.
And then
cut over.
Okay. On 155, right. 74.
So the dedication of the Seven Gables Inn is going to be next Wednesday, March the 11th. You've done an 18-month, $9.5 million renovation. So tell us a little bit about the building when you purchased it. And I've got a little history here. It dates back to 1926. And I was looking at it. I found this very almost funny, that the cost was $60,000. And it's changed quite a bit over the years, but you've really changed it now. So tell us what you've done.
Thank you. So, yes, the building was built in 1926 as offices, converted to a hotel in 1985. But it was converted to a very bed and breakfast, European bed and breakfast kind of a place, no elevator, 2 wings that weren't connected. So if you stayed on the north side, for example, on the 3rd floor, and your friend was on the south side on the 3rd floor, you had to come all the way down, go across the lobby, and then climb back up the small staircase in order to visit your friend. So we added an elevator. We added a laundry room, which is all staff likes that. We renovated the restaurant, the meeting rooms. We added a private dining room, which is actually beautiful. Amy did, of course, a very nice job there as well. And then, of course, it was more about preserving the courtyard in the back. Mm-hmm. That's beloved for a lot of people in Clayton.
It's very beautiful.
It's gorgeous courtyard back there. Obviously made it more energy efficient. None of the systems worked. The plumbing leaked. The basement was basically a pool. We did not add a pool, but we did we did get rid of all the leaky plumbing and put all new plumbing in, new, very energy efficient HVAC systems, new roof. It's basically a brand new project.
Now, was it a complete gut or?
Pretty much.
And I noticed that you found some hidden stairways or stairwells that were, I guess I would say, drywalled off.
There were so many stairwells in this project. I've never seen anything like it. I guess just because of its past history, being converted from office to residential, there were staircases all over the place. So yes, we did eliminate a lot of staircases. Now I think we're down to just 6 staircases in the whole building.
So what are some of the things that surprised you during that renovation? Because in any renovation, it's like when you uncover something, it's like, okay, now we got to fix that. And I'm sure you probably went into this like, okay, this is a total gut, so we know there's not going to be any surprises. Or there, unless the foundation was cracked or something like that. Or?
No, there were still, any renovation, even a gut renovation, there are a lot of surprises that happen along the way. And for us, part of it was the roof structure. We had to really we'd bring a structural engineer in, and actually, just because of years of different renovations where inertia was holding up some sections of the roof, I'm surprised it never collapsed. Things like that. So that's. I don't think anybody thinks too much about how the sausage is made. It's beautiful now.
Right. Now, did the being a historic building designated by the let's see, Missouri, is that correct? Yeah, the National Register.
It's on the National Register.
You have certain guidelines that you have to work within?
Yes, very strict guidelines that we have to work within. And so this project was all the work that we proposed was approved by the National Park Service, and then what we did was approved. So down to the windows and the shadow lines of the windows and what they look like from the street. All that is dictated by the National Park Service.
Wow. So even if you replace windows, or did you couldn't replace them, you have
We
to?
actually replaced them.
Okay.
And we had to mimic the leaded glass exactly. So that when you drive by and take a look at it, it should look exactly like leaded glass.
That makes sense. Now, many times you're uncovering some things. I remember I tore down an old barn one time, and I found an old, must have been a booze bottle, that somebody had stuck kind of in a little area of the barn. And did you find any kind of interesting artifacts or anything that date back, from maybe when the building was built or along the way?
I would hold that question for Amy. I'm sure she probably can tell you a lot more about what she discovered during that, because she runs all the design side and the construction side of the business.
Okay.
But what we can talk about is the restaurant.
Yes, let's do that.
So the restaurant back in its day was Chez Louis, a French restaurant, and then Danny Meyer's father actually had something there as well.
Danny Meyer being a St. Louis native, folks.
Yeah, I think his father actually had a restaurant there. Danny Meyer started his career in that restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
As a dish boy or a bus boy or something.
Wow, that's a good trivia fact for the trivia contest people.
But what we're trying to do, if you remember, our mission is to strengthen and enhance the communities we operate in. And so here we are in Clayton, not a neglected neighborhood last time we checked.
Right.
We were asked to come in and buy that building and save it because, of course, the land under that hotel, under that building, is probably far more valuable than the bricks and mortar that are on it. And so given how much Clayton has lost in terms of historic buildings in the last few years, we were asked to come in and save that building and make sure that at least that historic building stayed and had an economic model that, was profitable enough that no one would want to tear it down. And so that's really what the focus was. But then when we started thinking about it, we were like, how else can we enhance the quality of life for people who live around here? And so in the restaurant, we came up with a Lost Classics menu.
Now, I have been waiting to hear this because when I read that, I was like, okay, this sounds great.
So it's Lost Classics are recipes from restaurants that no longer exist, that were beloved. My dream is still to bring the fatted calf burger back, but for the first round, we brought back the Parkmore onion rings.
Okay.
Amy has a funny story about how we got that recipe.
Oh, so we were discussing this Lost Classics menu, and there was a little lady walking by us in the hallway, and we were discussing, all our favorite places, and I said Parkmore, and she said, what about the Parkmore? And I said, well, we're trying to do this, and I love the onion rings from the Parkmore. I have all these fond memories. And she starts laughing, and she goes, well, I can teach you how to make those. And I said, oh, why? And she goes, well, because I used to own the Parkmore.
What?
And she comes into town to visit family, and she stays at Gables.
How?
So it was fun. It was hysterical. Just a funny, and she's definitely in her late 80s, right? And so it was hysterical. She went in the kitchen and showed our people how to make onion rings.
Wow, that's cool.
But we also have the crazy fish voodoo pasta with shrimp. We have the Bush's Grove Rust salad, and
Ramon's tortilla soup.
Right.
We have
Layton's meatloaf, Karen's meatloaf from Layton's.
Al Baker's stuffed mushrooms, crab stuffed mushrooms.
Making me hungry now.
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, it's just a fun thing, and people come in and they're like, "Oh, I remember this," right? It's super cute.
Yeah.
And the restaurant is called?
7 at Seven Gables.
Okay. All right. So it's the Lost Legends menu.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. And previously, the food establishment there was a pub?
That's
Yes.
correct. Molly Darcy's.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was an Irish pub. And so for the people who love Gables, we kept the tenderloin sandwich and the Popeye because everybody loves that. But, we've freshened up and changed it and have some things that we feel like people will want to come in for on a regular basis.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis In Tune. We're talking to Amy and Amrit Gill about the opening coming up of the Seven Gables Inn in Clayton. That's next Wednesday after an 18-month extensive $9.5 million renovation. And I had mentioned, Amy, prior to you getting here, that I had looked up that the original cost for the building was $60,000.
Yeah.
And there was... Now, I asked Amrit this. He said you would probably be the one to talk about this. Did you find any interesting artifacts that were left from the initial construction or along the way, the modifications that had been done? Like, whoa, look what some construction worker put here, and has some historical value or something back from the time, like newspapers or something like that.
Well, we do have some of the menus from like Chez Louis and Bernard's that people have brought into us actually, and then we have there were weird things, but more like construction obstacles, I guess I would say, because it was originally two buildings with like a path and then a courtyard, right? And they took that center pathway and made it into the lobby area of the building. So there's an odd brick pattern, and we can't figure out if it was a window or I don't think it was a fireplace. Originally, I thought it was a fireplace, but I don't think it was a fireplace. And then there are all kinds of odd things about how the building connected to itself. For example, when we first started on the building, you had to walk through that pathway, and if you wanted to get to the rooms in the back of the building, you had to walk back out into the corridor. I mean, out into the courtyard,
Yeah,
right?
outside the building.
And then go to basically an exterior stair and climb up 3 flights of stairs to your room, right? Because it was an old apartment building. And so there were obstacles to, we took all those stairs out and fixed it. So now there's an easy way to get up and down. There's a
the elevator takes you
interconnecting.
to.
So, because I can't even imagine telling somebody, oh, here, walk out, back outside.
Right.
Up 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah,
So.
what's this
In the
umbrella
snow
for?
and the rain.
Yeah. Oh, you need this when you go out to your room.
Well, and it was really funny when you were having a wedding there and the person who was staying in the room over there came out into your wedding.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? I'm sure that was
Like, I'm just trying to get out to my car.
Right, exactly. And I'm, or here, let me roll my suitcase through your wedding.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So.
Speaking of that, I saw pictures online, and that's a great area for a reception, and you have those kinds of facilities for that,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, we have meeting rooms as well as the courtyard. The courtyard will accommodate up to 150 people. So.
Now, talk about some of the rooms. How many rooms, again, are there, and what did you do to them?
There's 32 guest rooms. And basically, we took everything pretty much back to the studs. And especially in the back portion of the hotel, it's all brand new drywall, new everything. In the front portion, it's a little more challenging because we had all the gabled ceilings and the old beams that we wanted to save and some of the ceilings that we wanted to save. So we saved that. But It has all new systems, all new air conditioning, all new internet. I mean, everybody nowadays, they want internet. Here's the thing, right? And it has an elevator, and it has ways to walk from one side of the building to the other, because previously, if you were staying on one side on the third floor, you had to go down 3 flights of stairs and across the center of the hotel and back up 3 flights of stairs. So
we did put a catwalk back in, a connector on each floor so that you can walk from the north to the south or vice versa as well.
Okay.
And of course, the rooms are our signature rooms with, our special Toto toilets and washlets and TVs in the
The Toto
vanity
toilets are great.
mirrors.
Those are they have the bidet. Are they bidet toilets?
Yes.
But bidet toilets, folks, you got to check them out.
the only ones in Clayton.
They're pretty cool. They're pretty cool.
So yeah, and they're fun. I mean, people like them, but also, we wanted that kind of higher end, nice, glamorous feeling to the hotel, and it is a small hotel, so it feels like a home. It feels like you're,
An oasis.
right? Yeah, but
it really is an urban oasis, especially with that courtyard. But it very much feels. A lot of the guests that I've talked to tell me that it feels like coming home almost, like it's an extension of their home. So
That's
a lot of very dedicated customers, raving fans is what I call them.
I would think that it would be a stop for a lot of people who have to do business from out of town in Clayton, or they're in the surrounding area. It's fairly close to the airport. You're close to downtown area. If they have to do some business out in West County, it's more centrally located for them. They don't have to commute as much.
Right.
I would think that would be, or it would be very appropriate for like an anniversary. Hint to folks out there, if you wanted to celebrate your anniversary, and you could check out the two-door look on the outside, and escape then into this oasis in urban land, and you're not there very far away from your kids, so you don't have to worry about running back home like that.
Staycations are definitely very enjoyable there, and given where travel seems to be going over the next couple of weeks at least.
Right, they're becoming more prevalent. I was reading a little bit about the architects, Meyer and Comfort, and what can you guys tell us about the architects?
Well, the developer actually of the property lived in England for a while and really loved the Tudor style. And so actually they developed quite a bit of Clayton. They did a lot of work in Clayton, as a matter of fact. And they built this to be their offices.
Right.
So they officed out of here while they were building all kinds of residential developments in Clayton. But they just fell in love with the Tudor style of architecture, and that's why they built it this way.
Yeah, and these guys apparently developed a large portion of Ladue also, before Ladue was called Ladue.
Oh, yeah.
And some of these neighborhoods, Picardy Lane, Fair Oaks Estates, Claremont Lane, Oakley Lane, Claremont Park, Glen Forest, York Village, that's in Brentwood. I'm not familiar with those. I'm not out in that area, but they developed those. And I found this very interesting. I don't know if you guys know about this, about Norman Comfort, his death, the death of the architect. So I'm reading from Wikipedia, folks. It's the known fact sheet of the world. Not.
Yeah. Well,
It's a starter for you. It's a starter for you. So on January 27th, 1934, Norman Comfort, who was one of the architects of Seven Gables, was playing bridge with his friends at his home on 37 Claremont Lane, which is in Ladue. He went upstairs to get a fresh deck of cards when his guests heard a gunshot. They found him dead with a bullet wound to his right temple and with a revolver and a box of cards on the ground under his legs. It sounds like a whodunit kind of deal. The life insurance company considered the event a suicide and denied his widow's claim. And after a lawsuit that included the testimony of the party guests, a jury ruled it an accident and that Mrs. Comfort was entitled to the $30,000 policy. In addition to the life insurance policy and company stock, his estate was valued at $1.3 million.
wow.
And that information comes from the St. Louis Globe Democrat. So it's not some it's a reporter kind of deal. It's not some,
Yeah.
maybe somebody else was looking on Wikipedia or heard somebody who said somebody that happened. So I thought that was kind of strange. But St. Louis has strange kind of deaths.
Story.
You read about the lemps in the bushes
Right.
and things like that.
Well, Amrit and I play bridge. I occasionally want to kill him over.
What? Hey, we're never partners, my dear. So
Right.
That's the best way to do it. Well, maybe not, unless the
exactly.
competition gets really tough like that. So, did you have? I know sometimes, and I'm not trying to get into things, but sometimes working with governmental institutions, inspectors and things like that, what you can and cannot do, and who approves what, and fire marshals and all that stuff. How does that stuff play out for you guys as it relates to not only the particular thing we're talking about here with Seven Gables, but also Hotel St. Louis?
We were, I think, particularly lucky in Clayton. We had a pre-construction meeting with them, and
Very important.
Obviously, they're used to new buildings
Right.
where they can kind of dictate everything, and we had to have kind of a meeting with them and say, okay, this is a totally different animal, and it has to be treated that way. And they were very good to us, very kind. The weird thing about Clayton that I think Michelle, their mayor, is trying to fix is they don't have a lot of rules that other municipalities have. So, for example, what's happening in Clayton with demolitions, they don't have a rule that it has to go in front of anybody before somebody can demolish a building. They just walk in and get a permit, right?
Really?
But like in the city of St. Louis or in Webster or anywhere else, I think, there's a rule that says you can't demolish a building unless you go in front of the Preservation Commission
Right.
so they're really struggling with that in Clayton because, there are people who want to build like mega high-rise buildings
Right.
and tearing down, historic Clayton, which a lot of people in Clayton are not happy about.
Right, there's another building by a very famous architect, that a mid-century modern building that is maybe going to get demolished, that's trying to be saved.
Right, exactly. And that whole storefront section right behind it. And there are several places where people are proposing tearing down historic buildings all over Clayton and just building high-rise after high-rise. And so that's interesting. And I think, she's really trying to affect some change there, but they don't know how. It'll be difficult, I guess, because, they haven't ever had these. I mean, most of these rules in most of the cities have been in place for 20, 30, 40 years, right? So that was interesting to me. I was laughing because the pictures of historic Clayton it looks like the Wild Wild West.
Right.
And I said, wow, it's still the Wild Wild West, right? You just don't have any rules at all,
But you don't have any of those buildings. either.
Right. Yeah. There's good and bad to those kinds of issues of having some kind of. Some people would consider it a restraint, and some people would consider it, I'm free to do whatever I want to do.
Well, the reality of it is that St. Louis has been tearing down buildings and rebuilding over and over again. All through the 1800s, we were tearing down buildings and we were rebuilding new buildings. The problem is today, a building that's been there since 1926, for example, it is the repository of a lot of stories of our community. And when you tear the building down, those stories are silenced. And schools in particular, or hotels, buildings like this, they are the repositories of the stories of our people.
Absolutely.
And so tearing them down, I am very opposed to.
Which, we've got about 2 minutes here. So quickly, because I know last time we talked, the chemical building, you're working on that, and what's a status of that? Because I know you were working to connect that to Hotel St. Louis.
So that project is still on the books. There have been a few hiccups, obviously, and this latest coronavirus scare actually has delayed the closing by several weeks now.
So it's hiccuped. Coronavirus has hiccuped a lot of things around, and it's important to realize that I know sometimes people think, well, why isn't that getting done? Why isn't that getting done? There's a lot of meetings that have to take place as it relates to plans and financing and meeting, like you said, Amy, with all of the players involved to make sure that they're all satisfied before, one shovel of dirt is turned or one piece of plaster is ripped off a wall. That all has to be done.
We've had multiple conversations with the National Park Service about there's a staircase at the back of the chemical that people don't normally see, but it's beautiful. But it's currently, our engineer has said that it should be demolished. He just keeps saying, this is not safe. You should not have anybody walk on it. You should not. And so we're trying to figure out how to either, what do you do with that? Do you replicate it? And it's an exterior stair that's encased in like a metal paning.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
And
it's pretty.
Yeah. It's very pretty.
It's very pretty.
But it's
falling off.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually peeling away from the building at the current moment. So that has been a real challenge on the architecture side to try to figure out what to do with that and how to fix it and how, what would a historic say about it? How do we make it work? So, but I mean, we love that building, so we're hopeful and we keep pushing forward on it.
You're saving a historic building, like you were talking about, Amrit, an old building that has a lot of character, it has a lot of stories, has a lot of history here in St. Louis, and it's very important that when you go through all those processes like that, you can get a little hiccup like, what are we going to do with the stairwell? And that may last a long time, but you have to get that solved before you really keep pressing on.
That's true.
So I want to thank you guys for coming in again today. The official dedication of the renovated Seven Gables Inn next Wednesday, March 11th. And be there or be square and check out the restaurant. Is the restaurant open right now?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so check the restaurant out. You get some of your St. Louis favorites. So Amrit and Amy, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis In Tune. You're listening to KWRH 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri.